one during the summer that really caught my attention was death panels.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Healthcare reform will result in pulling the plug on grandma.
Oh, no, she hasn't lived long enough anyway.
Okay, no more of that, all right.
It's probably.
As a person who's approaching the age of your grandma, I'm sensitive to this, okay?
Well, that's probably largely based on people's, like, they can point to one thing and say, well, look at the Netherlands, which actually does kill a lot of people without consent and with euthanasia. Look up
It
the
does?
numbers, it was just all over the news, it was a really big, yeah.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that, but I would caution that what's in the news is not necessarily true. This requires a little bit of.
No.
Authoritarian.
Look it up, I mean, it's people that are like comatose without a chance of like, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, but who decides?
When there's nobody no decision maker, like there's no next.
No,
of
no
kin.
family member available?
Yeah.
Then the government just decides?
Look at, it's interesting.
Okay. Sort of.
How does that relate to?
We have a person who's lived in the Netherlands, so.
I think you have to, there's a certain rule about euthanasia, so I think the government doesn't decide whether the person needs to be killed or not. I think maybe in certain extent they will decide, but I think they don't say directly this person needs to be dead right now, so I think that's
Okay.
Right now.
Well, I think it's probably an empirical question that can be researched, that there's an answer to. It's the first I've heard of it, but I don't know that it's not true or that it is true. As I say, an empirical question to find the answer to. If it is true, I think it probably, even so, is in a very, very small number of cases. Yeah? Suppose there is a next of kin, yeah?
I think that can just be, like, people start with small things that aren't exactly related, but they can kind of tie them into things, and then so they try to make these arguments of, well, you know, especially people who are very conservative then would make the argument of, well, look how liberal the Netherlands is, and then they're gonna start to do this, and this is what's gonna happen, and, you know,
So there's a lot of
exponential,
fuzzy
yeah.
thinking. Liberal is sort of the first step on the road to communist.
Yes.
And so you don't want to go there at all. You don't want to be
Right.
liberal at all. Okay. Okay. Well, so I think the conclusion that we're going to draw from this is that this is not totally crazy, that the government actually does represent the interests of the bourgeoisie. So what's the solution then that Marx proposed? So if this is true, and I think it clearly was true in Marx's time, where the governments of the Western European countries and of the United States were clearly aligned with the corporate interests. There's no question about it as a matter of historical fact. So what was Marx's solution?
To dissolve this bond that exists between.
So overthrow the government. How? Overthrow the government by electing Barack Obama as the progressive liberal leader. Or how? Overthrow the government through what means?
I like that word.
It does have a strong sound to it. Right? Yeah. Can we have a native Spanish speaker say this word for us?
Which one?
Junta.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Much better accent than mine. Okay. Okay. What's the means of overthrowing the government? How can you do this? By violent revolution.
It has to be violent.
Why does it have to be violent?
This is not gonna work.
Marx said something that was later echoed by Martin Luther King. Strange to do. These two thinkers are quite different in many ways. But they both aimed for thoroughgoing social revolution, but by different means. And later in the course, we're going to read King's letter from Birmingham jail. In that letter, he explicitly echoes Marx when he says, the elite will never give up power voluntarily. It just doesn't happen. Maybe, some individual members of the elite might be very, unselfish and give up their privileges. But as a class, this isn't going to happen. And therefore, some kind of direct action is needed. This is where Marx is different from King, the nature of the direct action, violent versus nonviolent. And we'll see later when we look at the King letter that he advocated nonviolent direct action in order to make people aware of the injustice that existed in the society, but not violent direct action. Quite the opposite of Marx. Last time we talked about perhaps a little bit of the psychology of Marx as a human being. I think he was an angry guy. And that anger found expression in his general philosophical and political views.